think I'm live. Yeah, okay. Hello and welcome to the latest edition of my Facebook Live user experience audits. It's not Christmas yet. It's not even Thanksgiving, but I decided that I was in the mood for an ugly WordPress Christmas sweater, and if you love it, you can get your own on the WordPress shop. Maybe I'll find a link and add it in after the fact here. But anyway, I just wanted to say that I will be taking a break from these audits, if not next week, then the week after, for a trip I'm going on, and then I'll resume it after that. So I'm still trying to decide if I want to do one during Thanksgiving week. It'll just depend on how crazy it is. So if you don't see one then, now you know why. But in the meantime, we are going to go through another blog. It's called Good For You Gluten Free. So this will be the first food blog that we've covered. And Jenny, who started this blog, she's in charge of the Denver Bloggers Club here in Denver, obviously. And she recently put on a really cool conference that I was invited to speak at. A sold-out conference with about 100 bloggers at least, and it was a really cool event, so I'm excited to go over Jenny's blog. And honestly, it's going to be hard because she's been killing it with page views. It's a very popular blog in the space, and Jenny really knows her stuff, so I'm not sure how much value I'm going to be able to add for her, but I found a couple things that I think might be able to help. So let me switch my screen here, and then I should be able to see her website. I'm going to make it just a teeny bit bigger. So this is Good For You Gluten Free, and again, it's a food blog focusing on gluten-free diets. And you can see she has a cool parallax effect here, which is just where the background kind of stays in place while the text scrolls past it, and then you can see different parts of the background. So she incorporates that in her hero image. She also has, other sort of feature item aspects, or like sub-hero images, I guess you could call them. So this is her homepage, and really the first thing that stands out to me that I think Jenny could improve on the homepage is a picture of her, because after all, most blogs that seek partnerships with other people, I think I'm going to mess up this statement. What I'm trying to say is she is the person behind the blog, and people want to be able to see her, and Jenny's always smiling, so just having like a nice inviting image of her, maybe with something that she's just made, or, maybe even her, at one of these events that she helps to put on would be cool, because then people can see, who she is, what she's up to, and start to make that human connection. Because when it comes to following a blog or as a brand wanting to make a partnership, I think that that's one of the first things that people want to see and know. It's who is it that's putting this information together? What's the human element behind all this great information? So subbing out this image at the top of her blog for one that has her in it would be a great first step in building that, element of liking. Because in order for someone to buy from you, which they might not be buying directly from Jenny, but they might, be tempted to click an ad or click a link that gets her affiliate income, people need to know, like, and trust you. And so part of knowing and liking somebody is just seeing who they are. And, she has an about page, and we can take a look at that too. But using this homepage real estate to get that process started is something that's important for anyone who is the proprietor behind a brand to be thinking about, especially a blog brand, because it is so personal. So we go down, and one thing that I wanted to talk about, and this reminds me of one of my favorite books, which if you're interested in user experience design, you should definitely read it. It's called The Design of Everyday Things. And The Design of Everyday Things talks about how you should be considering how your design sort of like directly speaks to people. Like, you shouldn't have to explain it to somebody. It should just make sense to them with the way that you're presenting elements. So saying, please click start here, I'm assuming that this is an attempt at a call to action, which makes sense. You're trying to drive people towards what it is you want them to do. But having to say that kind of defeats the purpose of usability, I guess, in general. So maybe instead it's, I'll show you everything you need to survive and thrive on a gluten-free diet. Let's go, or I don't know, something like that. I don't think that it needs to have this call to action here. It's a very, very nitpicky small thing, but something to keep in mind. One thing I've noticed when going through Jenny's website is there's not a lot of labels or like subheadings. So this section here would benefit from having a label that's something like latest blog post, or maybe popular posts from the blog, or whatever it is that would adequately describe them, depending on what the filter is that she's used to bring these here. Just having a heading helps people to understand the content that you're getting at. It helps people to scroll and find what section is most relevant to them. She also has like a challenge here that you can sign up for, which I'm assuming is like an opt-in for her. So, and yeah, it looks like it leads to like a lead page, or it's like a ConvertKit page. One thing to keep in mind in terms of getting people to fill out forms is the more you direct them away from that form, the more conversion goes down, as they have to keep clicking through links or pages to enter their information. So right here we have one click to join now. Oops, I think I went to the wrong thing. Okay, so we have one click to sign up now, and then we get to a page and I have to do a second click to sign me up, and then I have to fill in my information. So it's really 3 clicks in order for me to actually fill out this form. I would recommend having it as like a pop-up instead, and having the name and email right there so that you don't have to click through it. So that would be one way to potentially increase conversions and just make a better user experience. So then we have like what seems to me like some of her most popular pages, and again, having some sort of subheading that says general resources, gluten-free resources, might be the way to go. You'll probably want to wordsmith that a little bit, but just saying, this is where you want to start, and there's different ways to get information, whether it's reading articles or if it's workshops or even coaching. So maybe having a title, maybe even having a sentence or two describing that would help people to draw their attention here and to, hopefully get them to convert in some way on these things. So then she has like another feature area, and then we have some more articles here, and these are potentially more like cornerstone articles. So again, having some sort of helpful subheading that just explains what they are and how they're maybe different than the articles that you've shared here would be useful for the user. So then one thing that I'm not so sure of is I'm assuming that these are more or less blog categories. So we have gluten-free recipes, products, new posts, Denver specifically, celiac info, and just a general FAQ. To me, it's a little bulky to have, even though these are like more or less blog categories, and then you have like all your top level pages here, as well as like a privacy policy in terms of use, which is great practice for anybody to keep in mind on any sort of website, especially in the wake of GDPR. But I'm not sure that I like this way of displaying information, just because it takes up so much space. But it doesn't really, I don't think it serves anybody to have 2 different menus. It should really be maybe organized in a different way. So let's say, we have just this footer space here, and you have all your copyright information here. That's fine, you can keep it, but maybe you have columns in the footer instead that say, okay, here's a menu, here's the popular blog categories, maybe here's some of the latest blog articles, links to them, and then maybe repeating links to social, because that's something that the footer is missing right now. Links that repeat all your different social networks that you're active on. And so reorganizing the footer might be a good idea in general, just to make sure that you're adding all the information that you want readers to have easy access to. So So I'm going to skip over to a blog page because it had this opt-in thing that I wanted to show you guys and talk about. And then we can look at the blog too. But so I think this happened when I moved to like the X or to like the back button of my browser. So it's called an exit intent pop-up. That might not have been what actually happened, but that's what I think happened. And either way, I wanted to talk about it because exit intent pop-ups are really great. First of all, Google made new rules about pop-ups in 2017, I think it was. And basically they said that there's a couple different guidelines, but they basically made it clear that if a pop-up happens before somebody has the chance to actually look at your content, like if it happens the minute or the second that somebody goes to your website, that's going to be penalized in some way. I don't know if it's an outright penalty or if it's more of like an error issue that comes up in Google Search Console, only because I decided to be compliant the minute they said that. But one way to get around this rule of sorts is to switch it from having pop-ups that come up the minute you load a website to making sure that the pop-ups are delayed in some way. And so a delay could be like a 60-second delay. It could be after somebody sees X amount of pages. But exit intent seems to be a really good way to do it because it's like your last chance to get that person and try to make them into a subscriber before they leave your website. So it's effective for a couple reasons, and mostly, you know, just keeping in mind that Google has these new rules about pop-ups that you probably already heard a little bit about, and there's still some level of interpretation you have to have in terms of those rules. I can drop a link to a blog post that I wrote about it that gives some more guidance and some more insight into those specific rules when I publish this later, like on YouTube and stuff. But anyway, I just wanted to say that exit intent is the way to go. I do it on my website, so I think Jenny's on the right track here. What I wanted to say about this specific display is, so she has like a wallet-sized dining card that you can print out and take it with you, and that's awesome. I would just like to see a picture of it here. So just take a screenshot of it. I can show you like on my website what I've done recently to try to get more visual with my opt-ins, just so that they're a little bit more compelling for people. So someday when it loads, here it is. It's just this. I just made it, so there's probably a lot of improvements I could make on it. Don't judge me on the specific text I use, but you know, keeping in mind that I just had a screenshot of the cover page of it, it just makes it a little bit more compelling. I think it draws people's eyes here a little bit better, and people can even start to visualize what my opt-in offer is because I've taken screenshots of it. So anyway, that's my piece on opt-ins. So let's look at the page itself. So this is kind of like the standard blog post, and if I am identifying this correctly, it looks like she's using the Genesis theme, which is a really awesome theme that people can start with, especially if you're a new blogger. It's just very easy to set up in a visually pleasing way. So, you know, follow Jenny's example. That may not be the theme she's using. It just looks like it. But it has like this really nice like sidebar. It has like a focus on the content. I wanted to talk about her sidebar really quick, which is always an interesting topic because people, UX professionals will argue whether or not you should have a sidebar at all. I think on a blog it makes sense though, because you have so much information to organize, and you know, you want to be able to get something out of it for you too. That's why you're putting so much work into it. So it provides another place to put a newsletter opt-in, to, you know, share ads and things like that. One thing I want to say here is that, you know, she has like a video here and there's a heading for that, but there aren't any other headings or subheadings for any of these other things. And so one of the things you have to keep in mind to create a good user experience, but also to create a good reading experience, is this idea of parallelism. So if you put something one place, if you do something on one thing, then you have to do it to all other elements, or at least, you know, like she has a couple badges here. So she might, instead of labeling each one, she might say like, you know, awards or something like that. Or like, you know, some of these are like networks she's part of. So she could group those things. She doesn't necessarily have to title all of them. But another way to think about parallelism is when you're writing and say like you're using bullet points and, you know, you use like a period at the end of one, but if you forget to add that period to the other ones, even if it's more of a phrase than a sentence for the other ones, that provides a bad reading experience. People, even if they can't exactly pick up on the inconsistency, they might still sense it. It's a weird thing to think about, but in general, just the idea of making sure that you're consistent in your writing, in using things like subheadings, and you know, just making sure to kind of close the dots for people is a good way to provide a good user experience. Minor thing, like this like follow button is a little formatted weird, and there's no context as to what's being followed. I mean, it looks like an RSS feed, so one can assume that you're subscribing to the RSS feed, and it looks like it links to FeedSpot, so that would make sense. But again, adding a label or adding, you know, a sentence or two of context is never a bad thing. So let's see. We're already getting close to the point of where you're probably fatigued by hearing my voice. So just a couple quick things. One is that there are a lot of ads on these blog posts. So these look like, they're Mediavine, so they're like contextual ads, and it looks like they're retargeting me because I just got some furniture from this place. So, you know, but there's just a bunch, and I know that for a blogger, this is how you make money, it's with ads, but I would recommend limiting them maybe a little bit more. I'm not sure exactly how, but like, you know, this is a little bit overkill. We also have this one on the bottom, and we have one here. So trying to figure out how to create a better user experience without sacrificing, you know, the potential to make money is something that's a deep dive that we just don't have time for right now. And quite honestly, I don't know if I have the insights to do it, because I have never found this amount of success that Jenny has on her blog. So, you know, obviously she's doing something right. But again, we're talking about the user experience. And so from a user experience standpoint, that's something to keep in mind. One more thing that I will look at, her about page is actually really good, so I don't have anything that I want to add here. But what I was going to click on actually was services. And we've talked about this before, so if you've seen my previous Facebook Live UX audits, I'm going to say the same thing that I say in all of them, and that's that you should embed your contact form directly. So this is like a coaching service that she provides, and she has a couple different ones that she lays out nicely on these different pages. But when you click this link, it just takes you to essentially a contact form. So all I'm saying is it's okay to have this separate page if you want to, but I would also directly embed it here, just so it's easy to get people to convert while they're thinking about it, while they have all the information in front of them. So with that, I am going to call time on this audit. I will let you guys know if I decide to do one of these next week. Otherwise, I will talk to you again after my vacation.